And hello everyone, it is Peter Sam the Narrow Gauge Engine here, and today we'll be looking at another spin-off, one I haven't touched in a long time, Jack in the Pack. I did one ranking video on it in 2021 and haven't really mentioned it since. I didn't do a re-ranking as I felt my opinions were still fairly similar to that first video, but now we've discovered what the other 13 episodes were supposed to be in that season, before HIT decided it valued characters like Spud and Trixie over Isabella and Ned. So I can speak about them ranking style, and which one of these concepts is worst, and which is best. Let's find out now. Number 13 is a tie. Listen, as much as we may have tiny bits of information on Safety First and no Dozer is an island, it's not enough for me to fairly base those opinions on them. I'm going to talk about what we do know about them and how good they may have been, but as it stands, I can't give a fair rating on them. No Dozer is an island is an episode that revolves around Byron and involves him sinking into something. That is all we know. Knowing how Byron's personality is so unlikable in other episodes on this list, I don't think this one would have been the best. I think it could have been a great episode special effects wise, if it's a sinkhole or a quicksand maybe that Byron sinks into, but knowing how pompous, bossy and just straight up unlikable this bullshitting Dozer can be, I don't have much hope. It would have been no more than a 2 out of 5, I reckon. Safety First, on the other hand, is about Max and Monty being reckless whilst working. Now, I don't think they're the ones that would end up in a dangerous predicament in this episode. I reckon they'd have to save another character that is put into that situation by them. It could be a great episode for their character growth, although let's be fair, they'd probably revert to type. I'm glad Max and Monty were going to get an episode where they were the focus, as they're often just the constant side characters across many filmed and cancelled episodes. We still don't know for absolute sure, but I'd say this one might end up getting a 3.5 out of 5 from me. These ratings aren't even accurate to my whole opinion because I don't really have one. It's more based on the extremely limited information we have, but I can always make a small prediction. Now let's move on to the ones we actually know the plots of. Number 11, Bossy Byron. In this episode, we see Byron be an unlikable dickhead for about 4 minutes straight due to him wanting to be in charge. As Kelly is indisposed, Byron assumes the position of leader of the pack but does the role terribly, and as the name implies, bosses everyone around. The motives of Byron's character are interesting to me and definitely something not really seen before, but even reading the script, I hated every moment of this arsehole's tenure trying to control everyone. I was near the point of rooting for Monty and Max to ruin everything so he could realise how terrible a job he was doing. I can definitely understand why this episode was cut, because all it does is make me like Byron less. Before I thought he was alright, but this script made me do a full 180 on that opinion. It's a shame I couldn't put it in number 13 where it probably belongs, but 11th spot will have to do, I suppose. Number 10, Alfie Has A Secret. This is just the Bob the Builder episode but with Alfie instead. Seriously, I think it's called Bob and the Hedgehogs. You can find it on BBC iPlayer, it is the same. You are not missing anything with this cancelled episode because one just like it already exists. I don't really have anything else to say. Don't get me wrong, I think it still would have been okay to watch, especially with Isabella being more involved with the main duo of Jack and Alfie. But even reading the base print of the script, I knew that this lacked much substance and just felt like a slot to be filled, more than an actual episode that fleshes out character. We already got Alfie Has Kittens, which does the job of showing his soft spot for animals way better with much more intense scenes and also proves that size doesn't really matter. Don't clip that bit out of context please, I swear to fucking God. So in conclusion, this is nothing but redundant. Number 9, Jack and the Quack. This is another one of those episodes that seems to have been made to fill out a space on the episode list, as opposed to actually doing anything of worth. Jack drains a pond, gets worried about the ducks that live there, looks around for a bit, and then the next morning wakes up to find them in his bucket. That is it. Compare that to something like Alfie Has Kittens, which once again it has a similar plot to, and you can see that the blunders in this episode revolve around what it tells us about character. It tells us that Jack has a soft spot for these animals, which is new information for us because it's not Alfie. Hence why this is higher than Alfie Has A Secret. But that's it. We don't get anything else from that, and that is why it's on the lower end of the list. For these last few, I haven't been surprised as to why they were dropped. Let's hope the next one on the list can change that. Number 8, the Sodor treasure hunt. When Jack and Alfie hear of treasure at the site they'll be working at, they dig and dig and dig and find no actual treasure, but some fucking mineral water, which is declared the most prized treasure of all. This one had promise. In the beginning especially, but that ending is what it fails to deliver on. Mineral water? That's the best way this could have gone. We could have had a time capsule that Miss Jenny buried as a kid, and we learn more about her father through that. We could have gone full out Legend of the Lost Treasure and had some pirate booty beneath that soil. Hey, we found a dinosaur in the ground before, so why not? As it stands, that's the main problem, but I also feel like surely Oliver would have been more involved here, yes? Like, he is the one that found the dinosaur before, so surely Jack and Alfie would go to him for advice on how to find buried things. It just feels like this one missed the mark in a few areas, and that's why it's down with the shit ones. Number 7, Isabella Gets Steamed. This one's pretty sweet as it goes, and whilst I think it could be really good and I could really enjoy it, I don't think what we get is enough to convey that across to us in the fandom. The story goes that Isabella gets jealous of how much fun Jack and Alfie are having on site, and she feels lonely having to drive around everywhere. Then during the harvest parade, the vicar's tractor breaks down before it can pull the float, so Isabella has to. She doesn't want to at first, but soon finds the fun in what she's doing without Jack and Alfie. There's so much there to like, but I just don't feel those feelings I'm meant to when reading this. I love the continuation of Isabella being this third wheel in the Jack and Alfie bicycle, and I think a harvest parade is such a cool idea to have as part of an episode. A lot to like, but I think this is one where I'd need to view the episode first in order to truly benefit from what it's trying to achieve. Number 6, all work, no play. Yes, this is another Byron episode where he's kind of an ass, but the reason this is higher than most is because I think it gives Byron a more complex idea of his character than him just wanting to be the boss. He wants to focus solely on his work, and he believes fun is getting in the way of that. That's something we don't really see in children's media too often as a character motive. I love episodes with strong morals, and I think this episode would have revelled in its message of you can work and have fun. But it's not at the top of the list for a reason, and that reason is that Byron always seems to be such an asshole in episodes, cancelled or otherwise, and it's his only personality trait. That kind of just makes me want to see less of him because I know he's going to be unlikable or unreasonable. If this one was about Oliver and Byron was the one giving advice instead of Miss Jenny, then I might be inclined to enjoy it a whole lot more. But as it stands, number 6 is a good place for it to stay at the moment. Number 5, Jack and Alfie swap. It's a simple one, but a good one. Jack and Alfie want to do each other's jobs as Jack wants to slow down and Alfie's getting bored, so they do. But they soon realise the jobs they originally had were better off for them. I'm in two minds about this one because it does do such a good job at having two similar characters be able to do very different jobs. But I'm also wondering how much funnier it could have been if Jack had swapped jobs with a character like Ned or Byron. There's much more difference in their jobs, and I'm sure Oliver would have appreciated someone less dim-witted than Ned to work with. However, I can understand how lacking in realism this one might end up getting if that were the case. I think this one's simplicity makes it good, however there are still some better ones that made it further up the list. Let's have a look at them now. Number 4, Pop Goes the Diesel. Another Isabella episode. Max and Monty decide to bully her for being steam-powered and they begin backfiring to mock her. This then bites them in the back wheels when they all begin feeling unwell, and Isabella has to go and get some more fuel. I feel like this is a great pseudo-sequel to Mud Glorious Mud, as we delve further into Isabella's mindset. Even though she got insulted and ridiculed by Max and Monty, she still helps them out. Something a similar character, in my opinion, James, wouldn't do, and even Rusty didn't do it initially in a similar sort of episode, Rock and Roll. She rises above that discriminatory behaviour and decides to help them out. What a nice Laurie. I mean, of course, she makes them say that she's better than them first in a rather amusing sequence, even on paper, but it's still a kind act nonetheless. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Isabella is my favourite member of the pack, and it's episodes like these that remind me why. This definitely should have been made into a proper episode, no questions asked. Number 3, Jack's Snow Rescue. We've reached the top 3 now, and what can I say about this episode? It has all the setup for what I can imagine to be some great set work, effects, and all of the other great stuff that comes with a winter-themed episode. This one sees Jack feel left out from helping with the snow until he hears of school children stranded in the mountains. He and Miss Jenny race off to help with a snowplow blade attached, a very cool prop that would have been great to see. For some reason, Miss Jenny doesn't stay with Jack and instead drives ahead and Jack gets lost. That is a very odd part to me that seems very out of character. Unless one of the kids is Miss Jenny's daughter, but that's never mentioned. Eventually, Jack finds her and helps her brave the snow, and they find the school children playing by their bus and help them to safety. A notable thing about the rescue operation is how tense it can make you feel, even just as a bare-bones script. That's impressive. And the amount of cool new things we would have seen, like a school bus or a new snowplow for Jack, would have been amazing too. The only flaw I can see is the odd fact that Miss Jenny does drive ahead from Jack. That's still so weird. Surely you'd be keeping an eye on him, after all he's the one that's going to be doing the rescuing, not you. Other than that though, it would have been a stellar episode, and I'm so sad that we never got to see it. Number 2, Kelly's Heroes. In this episode, Kelly advises Jack to be careful whilst working, and he doesn't listen, so Kelly refuses to help him anymore. This leads Jack to fall down an embankment. In the meantime, Oliver and Ned have some silly hijinks that cause Oliver to fall off a ledge. I think this one is really fun and has the most potential of any of the cancelled episodes. The main source of improvement for this one is a longer runtime. If only Brenner and his team had made an episode like this instead of mucking about in season 20. I'm also glad to see that Kelly got more attention from the writers across all of these episodes and how he interacts with the younger, less experienced machines. He's sort of similar to Edward in that sense. Other than that, I think this one's just really fun. Although I guess you could say it'd be too similar to Jack Jumps In to include in the proper episodes, but I think the Oliver and Ned B plot is too much of gold dust to just palm it off. I love that character pairing, it is so much fun to see on screen. Despite all of that though, there is one more episode that I believe to be better than this, and that episode is... Number 1, The Importance of Being Patrick. Patrick feels taken for granted as he has to lay some cement for an ornamental garden. However, that night his cement is said to have holes in it. Patrick remembers of a quick dry cement recipe that Miss Jenny's father taught him, and they use that to save the day. Luckily, when the mayor opens the gardens, the recipe proves successful and everyone appreciates Patrick again, and he no longer feels neglected. The obvious amazing thing that jumps out at me here is the mention of Miss Jenny's father having a connection to Patrick. The lore implemented here is so awesome and interesting that even if the episode was that alone, it'd probably end up on the top half of the list anyway. Then there's Patrick himself. Patrick is definitely one of the pack members that got neglected by not only the other characters but the writers as well, and I think that may have been the reason why he was chosen for the role. Plus Patrick definitely has more character than the other forgettables like Buster and Nelson, so it was no wonder he was chosen really. I love his inclusion though, because his pompous air still shines through and it's not like it's vanquished by the end, but man is it entertaining. It's not hard to see why he thinks himself better than the others. He's definitely smarter and more experienced than most of the pack, and when confronted with a problem with his cement, he didn't hide away like Kelly did. Patrick is one cool character, and whilst he can be a bit arrogant, I don't think it's annoying like it would be with Byron, because of the way his character's been crafted. He's a great character, and this is the best cancelled pack episode in my opinion. And that's it. Well, how many of these episodes do I think should have been in the final 13? Honestly, not that many. Depending on what the plot of Safety First is, that could replace Scaredy Scaredy. Jack's Snow Rescue definitely does have more enjoyable features than Jack Owns Up. Maybe one of the Buster episodes could have been replaced with The Importance of Being Patrick. Apart from that, the 13 we got showed us all the amazing characters that made up this spin-off, and it makes sense why these were filmed over the others, because they give us great introductions to this lot. We get to know them all one by one, and by the end they're really familiar to us, which is what any introductory season of a show should do. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and until the next video, I've been Peter Sam, you've been you, and I'm off to rewatch the pack episodes that we do have, for nostalgia.